This is Lucifera.
Hello, this is Entropy, here again to discuss the Gnostic Gospel, the secret book of John. Today we will be reading from the introduction. The title of this part is The Key to the Gnostic Religious Quest. In Gnosticism, the quest for individual self-knowledge by any aspect of God's mind is often termed as the fall of wisdom or the fall of Sophia. This event is the key point in Gnostic myth and the secret book of John, for it is here that God begins to disintegrate. Self-knowledge by an aspect of the mind cannot reveal the whole mind. One single aspect has no independent self to be known. God's wisdom imagined an objectivity, knowable self. God, as an object of knowledge, appeared, an objective, demiurgic God, ruling a new objective reality, a world apart from the mind of God, an aspect of God's mind, imagining objectivity, found knowledge of an imagined reality. True introspection on the part of humans is a quest for self-understanding on the part of God, reversing the fall of God's wisdom into our human mode of consciousness. Enlightened human consciousness is wisdom in the pleroma. Normal human consciousness is wisdom fallen and living in an illusionary material world. Thus, there is no difference between psychotherapy for God and salvation for humans. Human beings are the state the Godhead finds itself, in which God forgets who God is. Self-knowledge is the key to the Gnostic religious quest, but not self-knowledge as an egocentric, personal, or individual matter. Rather, self-knowledge as a realization of our origin in God and our destiny to return there again. Egocentricity is a result of the arrogant attempt to know God as an object. Ego is a name for the continuing error that presents to the mind an external world, projecting outward. Ego is demiurge, a false divine self, a false God. Insofar there is an external world, there is an external God. Indeed, a vast series of gods, angels, demons, and archons. The panorama of unpleasant deity demons found in Gnosticism is not reflective of their own doctrine. Rather, it is an observation and an analysis by the Gnostics of the religion of the Jews, Christians, and pagans with whom they lived. Gnostics decided the God of the Hebrew Bible was no God at all, but merely the incompetent creator of a world that never should have been created. Gnostics believed that ignorant people worshipped the ignorant being who commanded Adam never to eat from the tree of knowledge, the jealous God who falsely brags that he alone is God, and there is no other God besides him. With spiritual insight, this God and the external world he is supposed to have created vanishes. Irenaeus tells us that the Gnostics, quote, confess that the Father of all contains all things, and that there is nothing whatsoever outside of the pleroma, unquote. This statement should be taken quite literally. The pleroma is the place of God's Sophia, wisdom, nous, mind, enoa, insight, pranora, forethought, logos, reason, and so forth. In other words, the pleroma is the mind of God. Outside this there is nothing. What point is there in speaking of inside the pleroma then at all? Irenaeus writes that Gnostics speak of what is outside and inside in reference to knowledge and ignorance, and not with respect to local distance, but that in the pleroma, or in these things which are contained by the Father, the whole creation which we know to have been formed, is contained by the unspeakable greatness as the center is in a circle. Unquote. Where then is the realm of matter or ignorance, of alienation? Spatially, it is nowhere. Spatially, terminology is ultimately inapplicable. Gnostics really speak only in terms of knowledge and ignorance. The greatest Gnostic genius known to us, Valentinus, wrote in the Gospel of Truth about how it is that this external material world, constructed from oblivion, ignorance, and deficiency, has only false existence that vanishes instantly with knowledge. Quote, since oblivion came into existence because the Father was not known, then if the Father comes to be known, oblivion will not exist from that moment on. This is the gospel of one who is searched for, which was revealed to those who are perfect through the mercies of the Father, the hidden mystery, Jesus the Christ. Through it he enlightened those in darkness. Since the deficiency came into being because the Father was not known, therefore when the Father is known, from the moment on the deficiency will no longer exist. As with the ignorance of a person, when he comes to have knowledge, his ignorance vanishes of itself, as the darkness vanishes when light appears. So also the deficiency vanishes in the perfection. So from the moment on, the form is not apparent, but it will vanish in the fusion of unity, for now their works lie scattered. In time, unity will perfect the spaces. It is within unity that each one will attain himself. Within knowledge, he will purify himself from multiplicity into unity, consuming matter within himself like fire, and darkness by light, death by life. Unquote. Here we have a beautiful statement of the final goal of the Gnostic religion, the resolution of multiplicity, matter, and darkness back into the one, through the attainment of self-knowledge and self-realization by each human being. All right, well, speaking about this particular part, I find a lot of this interesting. It adds a little bit more to the discussion here. Of course, again, we are speaking of self-knowledge, and that self-knowledge of an understanding that we are God. However, knowing that we are God is not in the sense that most people think it is. It is not an egocentric thought. Self-knowledge is the key to Gnostic religious quest, but not self-knowledge as an egocentric, personal, or individual matter. Rather, self-knowledge as a realization of our origin in God and our destiny to return there again. Egocentricity is a result of the arrogant attempt to know God as an object. Now, I have done a video on the autobiography of Satan, and the Jewish rabbi, the Kabbalistic rabbi who wrote that book, had the basic thesis that Satan, let's just use the term enemy. The enemy is within us, and his thesis was that enemy is our own personal ego. This isn't about us as individuals, but this is about us as a collective one. The same thing that I have been saying for quite some time. As a Zen Buddhist, I recognize this and understand it. The egocentricity that gets in the way, in all of our ways from time to time, is what condemns us. It makes us more involved in the illusion of this world, as though there is a separation between us and others, and us and the entire universe.
In the Superman video, speaking esoterically here, I mentioned the I am as being sort of the true self, and the false self, which represents the demiurge or shadow self, also known as Yahweh, Jehovah. Instead of looking at this as an external force, it's within us. So if you look at the scriptures from an esoteric point of view, this is quite interesting, and the book was talking about the demiurge sort of representing the ego.
Yes, it says projected outward, ego is demiurge, a false divine self, a false God. Yes, that's exactly, yes, it goes exactly with what you're saying. This is again the very crux of our argument against Christianity, that it separates itself from God and then somehow looks towards its faith, towards its belief system as making some sort of connection again with God, when that connection with God is the connection that we have within ourselves, and it's the same connection. We were never broken away from that, from the godness. That is just an illusion that we were, and it's an illusion that the Christian church propagates. Now, yes, the Abrahamic religions in general do this as well, but the Christian church specifically, the Kabbalistic Jews, they understand the connection that this Gnostic teaching is speaking about as well. It's talking about you having the God nature within. We keep sort of repeating ourselves, of course, but this is an interesting new perspective of looking at it.
With the demiurge, we're used to externalizing it and looking at it out there and seeing it as an enemy outside of us. In a sense, it is, but really the enemy, we have to fight the enemy within us all the time. So really this shadow self, this demiurge or Yahweh, whatever you want to call it, is something we're always struggling with, and we have to transform it. That's why I was mentioning in the Superman video, this transformation has to come about. The seed of truth is within these religions, and that seed of truth is going to come out eventually. So right now we're just seeing a corrupt Abrahamic religion, but in time the truth will come out from it.
And also it says here that the pleroma is not something that is outside of where we already exist. We've already in the pleroma, which I find interesting, that you come to conclusions independently, and then you find that others came to these conclusions just like you did, independent as well. And I used to think of it as a Zen Buddhist as that we are all still part of what we call nirvana, that we never really left nirvana, that it's only an illusion because this is an illusionary world. And it's also interesting that the distinction that Gnostics give is not, of course, good or evil, but knowledge and ignorance.
We are in a cave right now, and we're looking at the shadow self. So turn around and look at the divine light and know that you are. I am that I am.
Very good, very good. With that, we will close this session out, and we will continue to discuss this again soon. So this is Entropy 666 signing out.
And this is Lucifera.
We will talk again soon. Goodbye.